Look at this curious 18th century picture. Whom do you see here? An innocent-looking painting at first sight, it actually sheds light on a fascinating subculture from the history of Italian Naples. Femminielli, or literally little women men, cross-dressed males, were brought up dressed as a woman from a young age and were accepted almost as a third gender in the Italian society of the day. Rumor has it that you can still meet them in the narrow streets of the old city, even today. How true is that, and who were there in reality? Watch this video to learn about the shocking details of this horrific practice. This painting by the Italian Rococo master Giuseppe Bonito is just a pearl in terms of not only its artistic merits, but the dark piece of history it preserves. He painted this Femminiello in the mid-18th century, and it remains one of the only a handful of such representations during the period, and one of the earliest instances of gender nonconformity in art. Only one guy here, this one on the left, is a Femminiello. The other one, smiling happily, is shown applying some piece of cheap jewelry to the neck of the poor elder fellow. So, how come this grown-up man got trapped in a female dress against his will? These men were coming from impoverished families from one of Naples' poorest neighborhoods at the time, the Spanish Quarter. There is actually a hint for that in this painting, as the poor guy is clearly missing a tooth and has a goiter, a hereditary condition among the poor of the day. There were usually several, many children in those families, and they were all used to sleep together in one sort of bed and lead a rather unrestricted and frivolous life from the child ages. Usually, when there were too many sons in such a family, the youngest one might be made Femminiello. They were often left uneducated and grew up illiterate, yet cuddled tenderly by their mothers. Interestingly, they were cross-dressed from an early age, yet their parents didn't try to conceal their birth sex completely. Grown-up Femminiello would usually look rather extravagant, openly showing his love to dress up and paint himself like a woman, assuming caricatural movements and vocal tones amplified by very expressive gestures. It's fascinating, yet this type of behavior wasn't mocked up in poor neighborhoods at all. On the opposite, Femminielli were met with good humor rather than derision. They were thought to bring good luck to households in which they were raised, so they say that Neapolitans would even take them gambling. The painter made a nod to this tradition in this necklace of red coral, which is also thought to bring good fortune. Femminielli were equally embraced by their neighbors, who would even bring babies for them to bless and entrusted them with the care of their children and household duties and errands. By the age of 13, they were already completely part of the transvestite group, and the neighborhood totally accepted them. This let them feel like they belong to a known community, which has only one clear enemy: the world of prostitutes. The prostitutes were understandably worried about losing customers. Well, the latter was for a reason. Femminielli used to put on noticeable, almost theatrical makeup, especially on their lips, and opt out for low-cut tops and snug pants that struggled to conceal a lingering but perpetually awkward reminder of their biological origin. In relation to this recently rediscovered painting, everything proves it wasn't conceived as some secret portrayal of a shady practice. What we now take as an artifact from a history that is still emerging from the shadows was actually a testament of the exceptional social acceptance of the Femminielli cross-dressers in the city of Naples. It's curious that owing to social prejudice, cross-dressers were rarely depicted until the modern era. In spite of Neapolitan acceptance, this is the only known representation of a Femminiello before photographs were made, starting from the end of the 19th century. An important correction here. Well, I guess I made some kind of a discovery and we are really onto something here together with you guys. Well, while I was editing this video, I struggled with lack of any proper illustration, with any illustrations on the topic, because the painting we take as a reference is believed to be the only known historical representation of a Femminiello phenomenon. So an idea came to my mind: what if this painter, Giuseppe Bonito, has actually come up with one or two or more variations on the topic, because it's a really interesting one. So I began my search. It was online and I guess I found something. There was a small online auction going on in Rome, Italy, a couple of years ago, and there was this picture called The Fortune Teller. Well, yeah, you already seen it in this video. But look at this fortune teller. Isn't it a Femminiello? Look at the goiter, red necklace, a male hand, and the overall male presence, especially when the guy is pictured next to a young girl. Well, it's definitely a picture of a Femminiello. That means the second one, and I believe it to be the genuine work by Giuseppe Bonito. Well, a couple of years ago, they didn't manage to sell the painting. They were asking $5,000 to $7,000 for it. Right now, I believe it can easily make 10 times more. So, yeah, whoever owns it, I'd start approaching museums around the world and see what they will have to offer for this truly historic piece of art representing this rare non-binary subculture. My congratulations. And yeah, all I've left is to write a blog about it and make a video. I found some notion of the historical context this strange tradition might belong to. Well, you all know that the Italian history timeline goes back for thousands of years, so they say there was this ancient ritual happening on the slopes of the volcano Vesuvius near Naples. This rite celebrated the enigma of fertility and required the presence of a hermaphrodite, the only creature that contained the two elements into which all nature is divided. Ancient Greek mythology considered the hermaphrodite divine because he was the son of beauty, Aphrodite, and strength, Hermes. I won't go into much detail about the pagan ritual itself. It sounds rather strange and I'm not sure I fully understood the text in the old Italian book that described it. But briefly, they pretended that alchemy would help them to reenact the birth of a hermaphrodite. And this way, they simulate the birth of a baby and pretend it was the one. In any case, the alchemy vibe gradually evaporated with time, and that idea that one of the boys in the family could have it all and actually become a cute little girl who would bring fun and luck to everyone, well, this handy option stuck around. There were other examples of the same phenomenon in other parts of the world. For example, the generally friendly vibes around Neapolitan Femminielli reminded me of the third gender people of Samoa, fa fine. This is a fairly common thing today in Samoa and American Samoa and their diaspora, and there are a considerable number of people who identify themselves as having a third gender or non-binary role. Now, back to Femminielli in Italy. So you now wonder, could you meet a Femminiello when you go to Naples for a holiday, right? Luckily not. At least I hope so. Interestingly, when the city of Naples was under Spanish dominance, particularly in the 16th century, the Catholic Church strictly banned all potential homosexual activities. Later on, the morals got lighter, and up until the 19th century there were whole quarters and then streets where prostitution was legal and one could meet numerous transvestites, including Femminielli. Obviously, this type of activity brought up high crime levels. They were tightly connected to the mafia, and as a result, new rules were imposed, and up until 1970s, it was against the law for a man to wear women's clothing except on carnival days. If caught, the police had the authority to levy significant fines on those who broke this rule. The Spanish Quarter had its own unspoken rules, and back in the 20th century, one could still meet a Femminiello there. Since the 1980s, the Spanish Quarter began to change and absorbed lots of immigrants, many of whom didn't share the same cultural and religious background, so the phenomenon of Femminielli gradually faded away. Perhaps the most famous Femminiello of our time is Kitty Gabriele, who is at the same time a Femminiello and a reputed member of the Camorra mafia organization. He or she was a capo, a head in charge of prostitution and drugs in Naples, and was loudly arrested in 2009 and apparently has been serving his sentence ever since. I also found this talk show on Italian YouTube that was dedicated to the last Femminiello out there in the city. He or she doesn't look too happy and shared various recollections about the life he had to live and didn't choose himself. So it's hard to disagree that some strange ideas and concepts of the past are now gone for the best. I hope you had fun watching this video and learned something new today. Please don't forget to like this video if you did and share it with your friends, and see you in my other videos. Bye bye!